ready to go.
Hit yourself, Jared.
No, we need to bring back. Oh, you know what we need to bring back? Is fucking the ammonia.
Oh, no, when fucking Jut gets his shit together,
Yeah.
we'll have the Jut segment where he comes in and he gives us coffees.
Bro.
Oh,
I miss that.
I miss that so much.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to episode 42, of The Hunt. Today, I'm joined by Cake, Mr. Worldwide Leonard. He went to watch Fiend. Like fucking how many times?
It's been
Played
six
it
times.
6 times.
You weren't even there, Benny. Shut up, mate.
I already know.
6 times.
6 times? That's wild.
It was pretty sick.
And I'm also joined by Benny Roberts. He's currently sitting in what looks like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I moved the plants around just to make it a little bit more.
That's how I'm good at bench, mate. I'm a fucking T-Rex.
Anyway, we're going to get started with episode 42. So we sat here for about, let's be honest, 12 minutes.
12.
Talking about what we're going to talk about today.
It's generous.
Yeah, probably generous. It was 15. And we thought, you know what? SPD Cup was this weekend. Benny knew nothing about SPD Cup, surprisingly, because he's so locked in for Perth Cup. He forgot about all the other cups that are happening at the same time.
Yeah. There's a lot of cups over the last over the 3 weeks.
There's
so.
a few.
There is.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about SPD Cup just very briefly. Obviously, this episode is released after SPD Cup happened, but in real time, it's this weekend. I'm personally heading down to handle Josh Takua, which I think is one of the favourites to win.
Yeah.
I agree.
So therefore, that's my mail prediction is Josh Takua. I think, well, I can talk about his plan, but essentially, like, we're just going to stretch his lifts as much as we possibly can so he can win on maximal, breakage of the total record. Yeah. So we'll get the most out of his squat, we'll get the most out of his bench, and then we'll just go for the 3 for 3 on deadlifts and literally just play the percentage game between the other people. People look out for, in my opinion, is Hung Pham.
Yep.
I think he looks really, really strong. He could pull whatever he wants up to 360, I think, and that can dictate where he's going to sit in regards to the placings. And then maybe a third Smokey, like, I don't hate to say it, but like, I reckon Sam Butterworth could fucking sneak in.
Really?
Yeah. He's had a really good prep, watching his squat and deadlift. Bench is probably, if he just hits a 190, 192, I reckon like he could pull as much as he possibly can to actually extend himself on a third. As for like the others, yeah, like you could talk about Kana, you could talk about Kean, another one.
I reckon he's a smoky, to be honest.
You reckon?
I haven't really been keeping up with people's training just because I, like Benny, I'm also prepping myself.
Yep.
But the last time I looked, which was like more than quite a few weeks ago, I did see, I think it was a 290 double.
Yep.
And even his nationals performance, like he had quite a few missed lifts. So there's a lot of kilos there that he could potentially...
He did miss a lot of these. I think he missed a third
did,
squat.
yeah.
And if he hit that third squat, he probably could have stretched Leo even harder.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like if he actually executes all his lifts, has like a 9 for 9, 8 for 9 day, he's right up there, I reckon.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Benny, any predictions, mate? From what you've seen?
For the men's?
Yep.
As far as like what you're saying, you're pretty bang on, to be honest.
Yeah.
As well, like, I haven't been like as invested into like really keeping up with everyone's training and things like that. Though I would like to see Tommy Chaplin have a good day, a good hit out.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm a big Tom Chaplin fan.
He's a good bloke.
Big Tom Chaplin fan. So yeah, I just keen to see everyone have a good day and have a crack.
Yep.
Though on the women's side of things, I do think that Beth Parker has a really good chance of it.
That was going to be my pick. You copied me.
No, I didn't.
No, I reckon Beth looks phenomenal. Like,
does.
do you boys see her 220?
Insane.
Yeah.
Fucking, mate.
Yeah.
Pulls 220 faster than me.
Crazy.
It'll be great to see Beth take out the women's. I think it's good to see her finally challenged by someone respectable enough like Yanni.
Yanni's right up there too, in my opinion.
Yep. Yeah, Yanni could.
really-
If Yanni has a big, like, squat and bench day,
She talks her
could.
hands.
Yeah. She could hang on to it with her deadlifts. You know what I mean? Yeah. Chalks her hands, as you said. As for the other girls, like, it's hard to really pick who could actually push Yanni that far. Maybe Brittany Romas. She's like, I think around the 500 mark at 69.
That's right. She cut down. Yeah.
Yep. And then Smokey Isabella von Weisenberg. So she's obviously multi-worlds podiumist. I think she's held the world record squat a couple times as well. But she's had some time off, so it's hard to know exactly what her training is like. But generally speaking, when you have these world athletes, I guess, that do these comps after an extended period of time off, their quote-unquote baseline is generally quite phenomenal still.
Yeah.
And I think to the Australian standard where the records sit, she could honestly like surprise us all, but we don't know because she doesn't really post much of her training other than the odd squat.
That's right. Well,
But yeah, Jared, who do you reckon will take out the women's?
I've got to go with Beth as well. But really like I said, Yanni's definitely right up there. Like if Beth wouldn't win, I wouldn't be surprised if Yanni won. I know they're in the same weight class, but we'll see.
Yep. I think having Kelly and Dave on deck for Beth will help a lot. We've just made sure you get the most out of her. Obviously, I think she had a mishap on squat at Nationals, and I know squats have been quite challenging for her leading into
that's
her
right.
peak.
Yeah.
But I think from what I've seen, it's enough.
Yeah. She
I
just
think so.
squats what she squats and then
Yeah.
goes hard on bench and the pull, and I think she's good.
Yeah. Her bench has been looking crazy too.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on. So that's SBD Cup. It's obviously already happened. So flame us if we got them all wrong. That's all right. We're pretty confident. So today, in light of SBD Cup, because this segues beautifully, is we're going to talk about essentially how you can plan your competition calendar throughout the year. And we're going to cover beginners, intermediates, and advanced lifters. And I think it's something that's really important because we only know the nationals dates for 2025. And we don't necessarily know any other dates for any other competitions, but we can assume that in 2026, nationals is going to be around the same date and time frame. Okay, well, I'm talking about open nationals. Juniors and masters haven't been announced yet. I'm assuming it's going to be around the same sort of time as what last year was, so around April, March.
Yeah.
But just for the sake of, we know the date for open nationals, we're just going to refer to open nationals for now, and we can probably post an episode later about juniors and masters.
Yep. Sounds good.
So we'll start with Benny. So I think for the beginner, right, say for example, you're struggling to meet that nationals QT, how would you suggest as a coach to plan out your competition year for an athlete who's looking to compete a number of times in 2025?
Well, I think it would depend on the individual first, like how far they are from the QT, how much low hanging fruit they have in their training currently, and how much you can grab onto that during a healthy off season. Obviously, considering where they've competed last in this competitive season, if they don't make Nats, so considering I've got a heap of people doing Showdown and Perth Cup. For them, for instance, a lot of them are trying to get to, junior nationals, for instance. So if they don't make it, then it's probably going to look like at least 6 months of just off-season training, trying to build the base. Like the longer time that you can have in off-season, like away from competition style training, and that's not even to say that everything has to become less specific. It just means that you don't have to put like all of the, I suppose, like complications of peaking and tapering into competitions frequently, and kind of like potentially losing momentum from doing it too often, and just stringing together really effective macro cycles on top of each other until you can get to a local meet that's just far enough out of nationals so you can essentially just do the same thing again after qualifying.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. I think the biggest thing with beginners is like, it depends who you, like honestly who you coach by and like what standard you're usually held to when it comes to like how you lift in training. Some people just need the competition experience because they just don't lift to the competition standard in their training.
Yeah.
But I feel like if your coach is switched on enough, they should be able to pick up on, calls, squat depth, like all the rules you can possibly think of in your training that
100%.
nothing will like surprise you on competition day when eventually it does
Absolutely.
happen. So yeah, to allude to that, I think the 6 month gap, say for example, you've missed out on the QT and you start 2025, you're looking past nationals, you're doing 6 months of probably the things that are going to make you a better beginner, which is most of the time muscle, right? And improving your technique.
Yep.
So 6 months of just quote unquote power building, which we love here at HPC.
Yes.
Jared, would you add or change anything to that, mate?
No, I agree. Like if say like you missed the mark for that 2025 nationals, just go hard in that off season and look for 2026 nationals.
Yep.
And work hard. You should be right.
Yeah, and
by
I
the
think
time it
my
rolls around.
my explanation or like my validation there for this person in mind, you did mention beginner, but I think I'm kind of leaning towards more of that intermediate kind of thing, because if we look at a real true beginner, you hit the nail on the head in the sense that they do need a bit more exposure to comp experience before they get to a national level or
100%.
before, they walk out on a platform and they have to have the perfect day to just qualify.
Yeah.
So the last thing you want is for your standard of lifting to not be to that of, an actual referee. and run into a speed bump with like silly stuff, you know, missing commands, like soft knees, depth, stuff like that. And, you know, like as you said, if you have a coach who is relatively switched on and holds you to a high standard of lifting throughout your training, that is mitigated a little bit. But as we always know, like there is nothing like experience on the platform to just get you more prepared for it, even if it's not just to the standard, but more from a mental perspective as well. Because a lot of beginners are going to have like a lot of overwhelming emotion on the day, maybe a lot of pressure, maybe not feel as comfortable in it. So with that in mind, it might be worth throwing in one extra competition and even just running it in, not affording or like, you know, succumbing to having to peak and taper into it, but just kind of arrange the training week so that you land a final week on the comp day with an SBD, go out, enjoy it, have fun, and just feel for the environment.
It's literally what I'm doing with one of my super heavyweights. His name's Caleb from Cairns. The qualifying total for nationals is like 767 or something. And unfortunately, he's probably going to be around that 730 mark. So obviously, we know that we're going to be short coming into the meet. But that's exactly what we're doing. We're not necessarily like peaking and then tapering him. We're kind of just running it in, doing an SBD day, changing a couple of things around his micro within the last week so it all lines up. But essentially, what we're just going to look to do is just get some competition experience. It's been a while since he's been in the IPF. And because he did strongman for a while, and essentially just gain that competition experience and lead into hopefully 2025, 2026 nationals. But to allude to that, when would you plan your competitions, Jared, around an athlete who obviously is a beginner? Like, would you do the 6 month thing and then compete straight after 6 months as the QT, or would you stretch it out towards the closest end of the year, like as far as close as you can to nationals 2026?
I would personally try to find like a middle ground comp, right? So I wouldn't, I'd try to stretch it out as late as you can just to get more out of the off season, but not too late to the point where they've done their qualifying comp, they've qualified, and then they're 5 or 6 weeks out from nationals, because they're probably not going to get. I mean, it's not impossible.
Very rare.
It's rare that they get like a huge like PR total in between the two comps there, right?
You don't necessarily want like the back-to-back peaks.
No. And we hear about this all the time. Like James Lee kicked my ass in 2022. But he at the time, like, basically just hit what he should have hit at junior nationals at opens. You know what I mean? And I think that is feasible in some instances. But
I think that's when it comes down to then, like, you know, it's when you're looking to be like competitive specifically in an exact dated competition, you're just like, oh, okay, like if I have another chance to go and do this and go to regional, like, you know, worlds, that type of thing.
And not to shy away for the majority of advanced lifters, which we'll get to. But most of them actually like do a lot of back-to-back meets. Like we saw straight after Open Worlds, the silent worker meet was on in France, and people were either backing up the same performance or doing even better, which is crazy. But you don't necessarily see that for the beginner.
No.
But
I think as well, like, and like we'll probably touch on this in a minute, but it's kind of it's a lot to do with like the systems that the advanced athlete would have at play. And I don't necessarily think that much would change as they go into and out of comp. You know, they'd be trying to train different physical qualities and things, but they would be pretty hyper specific in comparison to like beginner intermediate athletes.
Sure.
And that would probably go with their peaking and tapering options as well. You'd find a lot more people in that advanced group have the more like run-in type, you know what I mean? Situation, just so they're more predictable. But yeah, I think just going back quickly though, something that you mentioned before with your client who Caleb, who hasn't had that whole like IPF experience for a little bit, that's probably a really good note for anyone who's in that intermediate category and is finding that they're swapping between any feds, because the standard of lifting, as we know in the IPF, is much more significant than that of the APL or the USAPL, GPC. You know, it's and it's not to say that, you know, that it's not to throw shade at those federations, but it's just being aware that there is a significant difference.
Just how it is.
Especially there's more question marks about why that lift was turned down than what there isn't.
And you know, when you're in a situation, especially if you're an intermediate to advanced and you're coming over to be more competitive in the IPF, for instance, you do need to be accustomed to the standard.
100%.
You can't be missing depth. Like, you can't be making mistakes, especially if you want to be taking out titles or national spots. Like, you know, so
So to allude to the intermediate calendar year, Jared, let's say like an intermediate lifter most likely is hitting the Nationals QT.
Mm-hmm.
How are you planning for the calendar moving forward?
We're talking like
So say, for example, they've already hit the 2024 or 2025
Nationals
QT.
QT,
You've
yeah.
got Nationals coming up in February, but they're probably going to come like 10th
okay.
or even a little bit lower than that.
At Nationals.
At Nationals. With the standard that powerlifting in Australia is heading, like I think you barely see an intermediate lifter in the top 10.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess like what do you do? Like do you send him over to come 15th or do you send him over for the experience? What do you recommend?
Well, I think this comes down to the athlete and, you know, what they personally want to achieve. Because, yeah, there are a lot of lifters out there who just want to, like, get that Nationals experience and PR their total, do the best they can. They probably don't necessarily care too much about placing, and that's completely fine. Mm-hmm. Then there's obviously, like, definitely athletes who do care about their placing. They want to place as high as possible. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it's just important to have that conversation with the athlete. Like, okay, you've qualified. Now, what are your goals for Nationals? Like, what are your expectations?
Let's be realistic. Like, they're not going there to hit a regionals or a world's QT, right?
No.
That's completely
Rarely.
out of picture. So what does that leave you with in regards to, like, goal setting for Nationals as an intermediate?
Goal setting as in, like
if the intermediate wants to go do Nationals, like, what are they really doing? Like, they're just kind of aiming to hit PRs and just gain competition experience, right?
Yeah.
Like, is there anything else to it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I feel like the intermediate athlete or someone who's kind of in a boat where they're not necessarily placing like anywhere near the podium. There's still a lot of novelty in it for especially like intermediates to just get to that stage. Like, you know what I mean? It's like to them, even just getting to that comp is like taking it to the next step. You know what
I think
mean?
as well, like, sorry.
Right, you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
Fuck
as
you,
well, for that type of athlete, it's really good to potentially enhance their standard of lifting. Because obviously, you know, in Australia, Nationals is the highest standard that we have. So potentially someone's standards lacking, get them Nationals to give them a little kick up the ass.
Yeah, that's so true.
If needed.
Yeah.
To add to that, I think one of the best things that you can get as an intermediate lifter going to Nationals is just seeing the advanced lifters compete and what they do, how they go about their day, how they execute. Watching scenarios where it's like, you know, most intermediates are going to competitions not to like place as high as they can. They're going there to just fucking maximize their day, right?
Yeah.
Every comp for them is like SBD Cup. They're just going there to literally like maximize their day, get the most out of the kilos on the platform. Yeah, there'll be miffs, but that's because they're taking more 50-50 chances. Whereas like they're going to actually experience a competition where like if you miss a lift, like you literally drop out of the race in order to win and potentially miss out on that next step as an international athlete. So I think sitting in the crowd, watching high competitive powerlifting, not necessarily being part of it, but just like witnessing it and seeing that there's more to the sport than hitting PRs on the platform.
Yeah, you go, sorry.
I think definitely anyone who goes to compete at Nationals, especially at that intermediate level, 9 times out of 10 comes back as a better lifter because of that experience.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter what.
So like Benny, you can allude to that because like you did 2022 Nationals, you haven't done Nationals since.
No.
But like, what did you gain from that experience?
Well, it's just like this is where I was kind of going there when Jared rudely interrupted. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. When I was just gonna say like just being a part of the spectacle, like you know what I mean, being in that environment and just around like the sport and getting a deeper appreciation for the sport and seeing these top level athletes like in the flesh doing what they do, and you know just like. Then meeting people and like, you know, hearing about how they got there and, you know, what they're doing, talking to them after comp.
Stories.
You know, just being around it and being more like engulfed in like the community and the environment. And that is not only, you know, being in that environment is not only going to make them a better lifter to the standard, but it's probably going to set more of a fire in them as an athlete and have them more hungry to progress to that point. Because like, you get it all the time. Like, you know, you see people who come from a novice comp that they dominated and stuff. And then they come in and it's like, you know, they think they're all that and everything, like, you know, potentially. And then all of a sudden, like they go to a local meet and they're still kind of winning. They're still up there, still kind of the strongest. You know, you have to get to the point where like, you're not the strongest person in the room.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just going to stay there
the
the whole time. So
that's it.
yeah.
Cool. So I guess like on the other side, the people that are being watched by intermediate lifters, you got the advanced people.
Yep.
So, Benny, how would you, if you had advanced lifter, one of the many you have already, how would you physically structure their calendar moving forward if they did make nationals for 2025?
Well, it's not too dissimilar to everyone else. It's just that they are going to have to compete more frequently pending their goals to go international and what they need to achieve that in the interim.
Yeah.
So basically, you know, if there's two types of athletes in this kind of in this bracket that I would say. There's athletes who are clearing the qualifying total by an absolute landslide, so they can just go to a local meet and just tick it off. Or potentially, like at this point, use their last nationals total to go. At this point in their career, they probably, like, unless they're going through like rule changes with elbow depth and things like that, they do not necessarily need to have platform experience to thrive. They can just do that in their training. So just mapping out.
And they're quite, I'm sorry to interrupt, they're quite adaptable.
100%.
So like if the day is going to be like long press calls, like you're pretty fucking okay with that.
Yeah, you're okay with it, and you just like
Long holds at the top of a deadlift doesn't really matter.
No, literally, yeah. None of it matters because like it's stuff you've been through before. You've done multiple competitions. It's not really a big deal.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I would say that for this type of athlete, I would put the local meet wherever it is best suited for them and their training moving into the national series, right? So just probably like mid-year, just tick off the box, just have fun. A competition that they're going to thrive in, and potentially a special event now that we have them.
Yep.
So they
Win
can go
some
and
cash,
do, like, you know, win
win a
some
bar.
cash. Yeah, exactly. You have some fun with it, and, you know, reap some benefits from that. They are an advanced athlete because they've been working hard.
And the similarity the difference between that and a beginner or an intermediate lifter is that the local comp for qualifying for nationals is most likely going to be like as far away as you can from nationals.
Absolutely.
Because you want to have that run into nationals, because no doubt you're lifting a lot more weight. The frequency of intensity, like from like an average standpoint, it's going to be a lot higher. So you want to try and preserve those injuries that come along with that as well.
Yeah.
So it is nice to look for those like mid-year comps, aka insert First Nations.
Yeah.
Or SPD Cup, I think, like is maybe stretching it too far down the end of the calendar towards February, because these lifters do SPD Cup. They've only got like 15 weeks till nationals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And SPD Cup, like they're probably going pretty hard. Like to break records, you're going pretty hard.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a consideration as an advanced lifter, like where do you want to put that local comp? You know what I mean? And that's really it.
I think something as well to, you know, consider there, especially if it's an advanced lifter who's come on board with you since being in that bracket, is someone is giving them the opportunity, and yourself as the coach, to trial a peaking and tapering strategy that you want to, and make sure that it's like, you know, far enough out that you can just give it a crack.
Yeah.
And that may
Enough time to get it wrong.
that may lead into one or two locals or something along those lines to trial it, so that when you have that high priority national meet to go international, you know what's going to happen.
You know.
You have control. And then obviously that's the local to national kind of situation. But, you know, fortunately enough, like we have athletes on the rosters who want to go and have the potential to go international next year. So as far as that, you just look at the opportunities that they have at regionals or worlds. Realistic. That is literally so key. The realistic opportunities that they have, obviously within placing and qualifying totals to get to that stage, and then look at their preferences. And something which we did after junior nats was looking at options A and B for the athlete.
Oh yeah, fuck! I forgot we did that.
So
that was so good,
really good. So like we run through, and for everyone listening, we kind of have option A or scenario A. Lifter meets QT, places second, therefore takes out the regional spot, hopefully, because the other person goes to Worlds being first. So therefore, we have X amount of weeks until that competition. This is how we're going to structure macro cycle 1 and 2 leading into it. And then we have scenario B. It's like lifter did not qualify or lifter did not place high enough to go. They will be X amount of weeks out from this local meet to qualify. Therefore, we have macro cycle 1, 2, 3, and 4. And from there, we kind of have like a long structure of what their off season will look like into a peak and then into a nationals peak.
I fully forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was fucking keys.
Keys, mate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like this is another podcast we could make, but like there's nothing grinds my fucking gears more than coaches or lifters doing a program that has no means to an end. So what that means is like what I'm like actually using the term macro cycle and planning like when your next comp is or when your next time to lift as much as you possibly can is. Like you need that gap filled with mesocycles so you actually have direction in your training. And I don't care who you are, like you need to have that plan in place. Otherwise you're just training without means to an end. And there's no specific like end to that. And that's where like you sporadically like lift too heavy too often and you're not considering like your phasic structure, periodization just goes out the fucking door. And you're not actually focusing on getting all three lifts to move together.
And the athlete's probably not going to be very bought in as well if they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. I think like that's where you can make some really drastic improvements because you have this like everyone likes to talk about the bigger picture and this is the plan for the bigger picture. You know what I mean? It's not just, like, let's get better in PR every single block. You know what I mean? Like, let's run 3s and 2s and 1s and PR 3s and 2s and 1s. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, like we have X amount of weeks to be able to get to this target. Like we need to map backwards, which is the best thing that you can do in powerlifting, honestly. It works in block lengths.
Bottoms
it
up
works
approach,
in, like, everything. You just get that this is where I want to be. Work backwards X amount of weeks. And
all it takes is just to communicate that. Like we're on our sheets at HPC, we've got this tab called the macro cycle. And essentially it's got like the starting day of the week, the end day of the week, and then each row basically like defines like the week of training. And we break those weeks up into what the blocks look like. And then across towards the right, it says goals and what the goals are of the block. And we're writing things out from where the taper is all the way until the start date. Like Sam Forsberg after Worlds, like we have literally got like, it's like fucking 30 weeks worth of like planned training in advance that we are doing. And we're just ticking it off week by week by week by week by week and just monitoring that, okay, we're sticking to the plan that we have moving forward.
Absolutely. And it's that's the best thing you can do. And like, you know, that way you are going to show up the strongest that you can when you need it because otherwise you're going to run in and all of a sudden, like, you know, you're 2 months or a little bit more out and you're having to restructure what you do for your macro in terms of block length just to fit the, you know, allocation of the comp day. And that's not what you want. You don't like...
Well, there's a reason why you can do transition weeks. They're helpful, but they're not ideal.
It's like if you could have the perfect outcome, you would always just run in perfectly. You know what I mean? And there's always going to be instances where that's not possible due to like, you know, late scheduling or late, like last minute entry, that type of thing. But at the same time, like, you know, if we're talking about like advanced athletes here, they should have a pretty good idea of what they want to be doing for the next competitive season. So.
Would you add or change anything to that, Jared, at all, mate?
No, I agree. Completely agree.
Short and sweet. I think for me to add something, I think just making sure that it is clear cut that like you're being realistic with the qualifications around like what your potential is after the nationals. Because realistically, like you probably want to have that regionals or worlds experience. Worlds is cut dry. It's like you're either first or using the Carpino 3 method, essentially like the last 3 totals in third place from the last 3 worlds, an average of that based on the percentage difference between your total and that's the next person in line to go to worlds. Which sounds really complicated, but it's pretty simple. But I think the likely weight classes, thinking of that model off the top of my head, would probably be 105s, 83s, 84 plus for the women, and if maybe 63 for the girls. Okay. So, like it's really unrealistic that you're probably going to be planning for that unless you are definitely going to win, because who doesn't want to go to fucking Worlds? And as for the regional competitions, I think just planning which competition you want to do throughout the year. I know obviously like Japan's a massive hit on everyone's list. I know that Commonwealths, I don't think it is next year. I think it's every 2-year event thing, just looking at how the last
it is.
Couple of years
it's in Canada, 26.
Okay, well, there you go.
Oceania's New Zealand.
Have you seen how many bids there are for Worlds, by the way? So like
Go on.
New Zealand, Serbia, and France are bidding for 2027. I could get these years wrong. But anyway, if you go on the IPF calendar website, like New Zealand's one of the bids for Worlds, which would be fucking sick. Amazing.
Yeah.
So sick for the sport. Like to have it down in this side of the hemisphere for once.
Good,
That'd be mad.
That's the one all the Oz athletes would want to go to.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Oh,
yeah. 100%.
2 hour travel? What?
I know, say less.
Let's go. Unless you're from Perth. But
And then there might be an Oceanias at the end of the year. I'm not sure.
yeah,
But we'll see.
fingers crossed.
So, yeah, if you don't make any of them and you're still the advanced athlete, again, back to where Benny mentioned, probably look at a local comp earlier in the year than later in the year so you can have an easier run in. I think that's probably what you're going to be looking at. So
yeah, and then like SPD Cup, like we spoke about.
yeah, SPD Cup,
got new
First
things.
Nations, Perth Cup, like I know Night of Champions at Perth Strength
Yeah,
Club.
that's
So like there's heaps of like those like, you know, meets that like you can go to as an advanced lifter to have like a nationals like experience and you know, still stroke the chord of that competitiveness that you want to have.
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
All right, we'll do overrated, underrated, properly rated. We'll be back in a couple seconds.
Sweet.
We're back. So we're going to be doing properly rated, underrated, overrated. And we're going to start with Benny because he says that his is the worst.
Yeah. All right, cool.
First the worst, mate.
Overrated, underrated, properly rated. Training on exact comp spec equipment. So meaning exactly what you're going to use at a given comp. 3, 2, 1.
Overrated.
Yeah, personally.
Great. Yeah.
Well, like, it's pretty fucking hard because some gyms just don't have the same equipment
Yeah.
as other comps. Like, unfortunately, if you live in Melbourne and you're coming over to APA for 2025,
There's like one gym with a V2, I think.
I think Hustler is the only gym for V2.
Yeah.
That's probably going to suck a lot because, like, at least everyone in New South Wales, Queensland, and WA have experienced a V2. So I think that's really, like, the only difference where it is underrated.
I feel
But
like,
I think for the majority, it's overrated as fuck.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a double-edged sword as well because, like, you could look at this through the lens of, like, someone who trains at, like, a fucking world gym or something with no calibrated plates. You know what I mean? It's like...
Well, that's the
when
bottom
it's
line,
like,
right?
That's when it's like, mate, you need to sort your
Yeah,
shit out.
if you don't have a power bar and calibrated plates,
That's like what you need.
I'd
That's
say
what you
those are the two like real keys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Like those are the things that are going to make the most significant difference.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, it's like obviously a combo rack is really nice, whether it's approved or not.
Yeah.
But then outside of it, it's kind of like then it's just being really spoiled.
I think I'd take a bench, like a good bench pad, over a combo rack.
Yeah,
First. You reckon?
I'd
I
take
agree,
anything
actually,
over the
yeah.
ER. I'd rather go the ER than use the ER. I hate that thing, bro.
Fucking hell.
Slippery as
I've
fuck.
got a new pad for it for us to do after showdown.
Yeah, who
That's
knows?
sick.
Maybe it'll be good.
Jared, your turn, mate. You can go.
Yep. So overrated, underrated, properly rated. Working backwards to where you want to land at the end of your block.
Oh, we fucking covered this yesterday.
Yeah, we did this on a reel, but the reel hasn't come out yet.
That's right. Okay.
All right.
Count us down.
3, 2, 1. Properly rated.
Properly rated.
Yeah, properly rated. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I was going to say underrated, but
I was gonna say overrated, but I thought to myself, fuck no, like
Mate, you
The
and me,
start- the
you and me were here,
Yeah.
and then we just fuck.
yeah. This,
So like like when you start a block, like say your current squat PR is like, I don't know, 220, and you're on singles. This coming block you want to do like 227.5, and it's like you do 4-week blocks, looking at 227.5 in the 4th week, and then working
your way
back,
backwards.
like jumps wise.
yeah. So if you said starting load, I would have said overrated.
Yeah.
Because like the starting load shouldn't be fixed. Neither should every load in between the start and the finish.
yeah.
That's where I think it's overrated as fuck. Because if you
Yeah.
stick to that, you're not considering so many other externals that could impact that outcome.
Absolutely.
But even then, like yeah, we all think it's properly rated, but you can still have things come up that will hinder you being able to get to that finish
for sure.
point.
Like, yeah, it's kind of dependent on like who you are as an athlete.
And it's good to not have like a emotional attachment to it.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. So in our small discussion about it yesterday, I said that a good strategy can be to have like an end range. Where you
Yeah,
have
the ranges
a
are
high
good.
and a low end
Yeah.
range that you want to finish the block out, and make sure that it's actually quite generous in terms of the lower end, just for the fact of like you don't have to push extremely hard, but.
Yeah, ranges are keys.
It also just depends, I suppose, on what metric you use. A lot of us are using RPE, so RPE is always king when you're doing that. But yeah, I think that if you fall into the trap, especially when you're not in like a powerlifting is my life type phase, you need to consider that you may come in and feel like absolute dog shit here and there.
Absolutely.
And that's going to affect every session, onto each other. So
Speaking of dog shit, properly rated, overrated, underrated, giving yourself self-appraisal in your training. 3, 2, 1.
Underrated.
Underrated. Good boys.
Yeah, underrated.
Why is that, mate?
I'll let Jared go first.
All right.
I think it's good to actually like, you know, like in a sense, look after yourself with how you speak to yourself. Absolutely. Like, yeah, like some people really respond to like firing themselves up.
Talking shit about themselves.
Yeah, that's the one. Some people respond really well to it, and that's good. But I think it's a bit harmful to be doing that to yourself all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you know, sometimes if you do have a really good set or whatever, it's good to be like, fuck yeah, man, like that was good shit. Keep going.
A big thing we have at the gym is like when usually someone does something really good, they just go tell other people. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's pretty fucking cute.
It is cute. Yeah. Cute as
What are
fuck.
you, Benny?
No, yeah, I'm all for it. I think that like even outside of the gym, it's so important to be careful, like Jared said, in how you speak to yourself, because you're with yourself all the time and you're going to be hearing those internal voices. And, you know, if they're not nice, then you're going to be setting yourself up for not only a series of very long days, but probably some poor training outcomes.
Yeah.
And just to like allude onto what Jared said, like I'm a person who likes to use the strategies of like, you know, getting into myself to get fired up, but I don't use it in terms of ever like talking down to myself. I will always tell myself not to be that, or like you're better than that. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
what I do as
so
well.
it's like like an uplift with a negative connotation in the phrase.
Come on, you
it's
piece of shit.
like don't be a pussy. You are a pussy. Like you know what I mean? There's a difference. It's like don't succumb to like being a bitch. Like it's not calling yourself that. And obviously somehow in my head it makes sense. So if it makes sense to you that you're not shit talking yourself all the time, absolutely that's good. But I think it's really good. And you know, like the more positive affirmation you're going to give to yourself throughout your training, the more enjoyment you're going to get, the longer you're going to stick to it, the more enjoyable the whole process is.
You're probably going to feel more confident as well.
Yeah, 100%. You don't want to be walking up to the bar like, you know,
Second guessing
in a way,
yeah.
like in an absolute way, because like you just said some diabolical stuff to yourself. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, like it just gets tiring after a while.
Yes.
Like the thing is when it comes to
fatigue.
arousal, like there's over arousal and under arousal, and like some people will get really like sensitive to like where they'd say those things to themselves, and it takes a lot out of them because I don't know, they're holding on to some sort of core emotion that is linked to that from growing up. That could be related experience to what they're about to do, but just in a completely different context. So like if I was doing what you did to yourself in the same sort of scenario, I would fucking be so tired after it. I'd be exhausted. So like what I generally like to use is more of like a self-belief approach. Like believing that I can do the thing that I'm about to do. Yeah. And it's a lot more like internal confidence and being more calm. Because I've done the whole fucking like talking shit about myself, but in the way that like similar to you, like don't be a fucking bitch. Like you can pick this up. Like I can do that, but I end up doing it for the real reasons that's true to myself. Yeah. So I think that's something that a lot of people need to learn is like what really gets them ticking. And sometimes you have to go down the rabbit hole and come back up to walk up the stairs towards heaven.
Yeah. I'm really big on
deep,
like,
bro. That's deep.
really spiritual.
I'm really big on like visualizing as well.
Yeah.
Like actually like, you know, like you're walking up to the bars like to do your squat. Like
surely
actually,
all you can think about is fucking cake all the time.
cake.
Hey, mate,
He's walking up to the bar. He looks to his left.
If I do this, I've earned myself a Woolies mud
That's
cake.
a cake.
Yeah, that's insane.
If I do this, Mum will make me a cake.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Just playing around with like your arousal strategy and, you know, just figuring it out, trialing different things for different lifts.
Yep.
And, you know, just running with it. But,
Fuck
you know,
yeah.
I think you and I had a discussion around like, you know, what we use for our like general arousal for lifts and stuff like that. And you said like, you know, I've been using like positive affirmation stuff and like, you know, attaching like the purpose of something that I'm doing to like a person or a thing. Like, you know what I mean? So it gives it like purpose and meaning to me. And you were just like, man, if I did that, I'd just get too emotional. I'd be in a wreck.
I'll be fucking crying.
Yeah, he was like, you must be way more in control of your emotions than I am. And at this, like, you know, it just depends on you as a person.
Yeah,
like,
it's weird, eh?
you know?
Like, I wouldn't say I'm not in control of my emotions.
No, like,
but like
I'm not calling you out on the internet
you're a
right
fucking
now.
piece of shit.
Yeah. No.
No, it's just like, like, I don't know. Like, it just, for the sake of performance,
It's like how you respond, like your response to
Yeah.
said emotion
Yeah.
or whatever, or like trigger. Or,
yeah,
you know.
just at the end of the day, just fucking don't be someone who you're not. I think that is
Facts.
clear cut. Like,
Massive.
it wears off really quick, and
People can tell. as well.
people can tell. Like, we see it all the time, like on social media, in the gym. Like, it's so easy to see what you're not being yourself through the actions that you're doing around the bar. But even saying that, like, again, like, you have to go through those experiences, like, to know that it doesn't work. So
Yep.
good on you for trying.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to wrap it up there. So that's episode 42. We'll be back next week. Something's on SPD Cup. See you
Something's on.
see you at SPD Cup. Fucking bring your banners.
And we'll see how right we were with our predictions.
Yeah, or how wrong.
That's
Right,
it.
thanks for joining me, boys. See you next week.
See you next week, guys.
See yous.
Bye.